All right, so as Daryl mentioned, I'm Kelly Hunter. I'm the president-elect of the chapter, as well as co-chair of the Strategic Planning Committee. Ben Samiski is the other co-chair, and he also, as Jerry mentioned earlier, is the chair of the TXCPA Strategic Planning Committee. We did that by design, so we could make sure that we could leverage that information and really get to the heart of aligning these plans. And Ben will talk a little bit later about the process we went through to make sure we did align the plans as best we could. But I did want to give before we jump into the plan, I wanted to give an overview of how we went through this process, and so you have a little insight of how it all worked. Everyone knows we had a strategic plan in place already from 2017 to 2020 that was great, and we had really good groundwork laid. In November 2019, we embarked on discussions about the strategic process, and then we also developed and populated the Strategic Planning Committee. In January 2020, at the annual business meeting 1 year ago in person at the St. Regis, we went over the need for a new strategic plan, and we also did a conferences IO poll and asked specific questions of everyone in the audience, and we got great feedback from that. And so that actually provided us with the feedback that we needed to make sure we were meeting as many member needs as we could and helping us develop that plan. So in February, we met to discuss the answers of those questions and just really develop a plan on how we're going to move forward. So from then on, we held several meetings from February all the way through September to discuss possible objectives and goals and aligning and all the different things that we were going to do with the plan. We held a strategic planning retreat on September 8th and put together the final draft of the plan. We presented that plan to the board at the October board meeting and sought their feedback. We addressed that feedback that we received and put together the final plan for approval at the December board meeting, and it was approved for presentation at this meeting. So at every step of the way, we were very mindful of TXCPA strategic plan, and we had Ben on the committee, so he was absolutely making sure we were mindful of that. And so we tried to make sure we aligned as best we could. We didn't align completely because we're just a little bit different, but we wanted to make sure that we were aligned because we really want to show that we are one group of CPAs, and now we're the chapter of that. So we want to make sure that we're all charging in the same direction. And he had knowledge of everything that TXCPA was doing in the TXCPA strategic plan with their consultant and their committee, and they've done a great job. So I'm going to let Ben talk a little bit about how we approached aligning the plans and just the process they went through.
Sure, thanks, Kelly. Well, Kelly already hit on it quite a lot, but I will just say that the other benefit of leveraging what TXCPA was doing is that they went through their own process on the state level of visiting all 20 chapters, talking to a lot of the leaders around the state and around the country, meeting with Bill Reeve from AICPA and other organizations in our space as well. So as a chapter, we didn't need to duplicate those efforts. We were able to leverage what they were doing. But what you'll see is when Kelly goes through the slides, one of the decisions that we made as a committee after a lot of conversations was, as a starting point, if we're going to be aligned in any sort of form or fashion, and I think we agreed that that was a good thing, we needed to start kind of at the top. And so you'll see as we look at our mission statement and vision statement that they match up to what Jerry showed us earlier on the TXCPA level. And we had never done that before. We had never matched mission and vision. So having that as the starting point and then adapting things below that. So you'll see the pillars that we have are going to be slightly different, but adapted to what we thought was most important here in Houston. So as he goes through the slides, you're going to see a lot of commonalities, but we really wanted to be aligned both from a process standpoint. You know, in the past, both the TXCPA and the chapter have had a 3-year cycle, but we didn't run, we were running consecutively or jointly so that we would both get to the end of the process and then come out and figure out, oh, well, it would have been nice to know that you were doing that and that we were doing this. And so we intentionally sort of stagger the process a little more this year so that we could share some of that information. So Kelly's going to go through and show some of those slides. And a lot of it's going to look familiar to what Jerry showed. And again, feel free to throw your questions in here. I'm also going to throw my contact information. So, after the presentation today, if you think of anything, certainly reach out to either Kelly or I or Mark with questions.
All right, thanks, Ben. So we'll go to the next slide, Christy. Okay, so as Ben mentioned, and you'll see it's very familiar because it's exactly the same. Our vision statement is empower members to lead and succeed. And our mission is TXCPA Houston exists to support its members in their professional endeavors and to promote the standards of Houston area CPAs. So that's just that more micro level. We did also adopt the guiding principles. We changed them just a little bit, but we definitely, this is going to be something that we do in everything we do. These are our guiding principles that that supports our vision and our mission is building leaders, connecting the members and resources. We also are leveraging leading technology. And we also have shown organizational flexibility through this thing. And so we're going to keep that going to show that we can pivot and be nimble as we need to be. So moving on to the plan. So we do have 3 pillars and they are very similar. The TXCPA plan has community and connection as one pillar. We have separated them. So we have community because every association is a community. And we want to be a diverse community. Connection, we want to connect our community, connect our members and with resources, and then professional excellence, because that's really another tenet of us is we are professionals, we're CPAs, and we want to make sure that we are the experts in all things CPA. So let's go to the next slide. I'm not going to go through all the slides. I'll do it high level because I mean you can all read it, but I do want to go through this. So I just want to talk about the goal. So each pillar, we have a goal for each pillar, and then under that we'll have objectives that we want to meet in the first years of the strategic plan. Similar to the TXCPA plan, those objectives and goals will change throughout the process, but this is our goal for the community is to build a community of diverse members to represent an ever-changing profession. Our connection pillar, our goal is to provide members with opportunities and resources to connect, serve, and lead, because that's the whole point is we want to build those leaders. And then professional excellence, our goal is to provide resources to assist members in the achievement of professional and personal successes. So those are our goals, our strategic goals underneath our pillars. So if you go to the next slide, the next few slides, you'll be able to see that there's our objective. We have 3 objectives under each pillar. And again, I'm not going to bore you with going through those, but I do want you to look at them and review them. And as Ben mentioned, provide feedback for us, because this is going to be a living plan, if you will, and we're going to have to change things as we go, because we've been thrown a lot of crazy things this year and it's not going to stop. So we really need to keep this plan living. So if you move on to the next 2, there's objective 2 for each one, and then objective 3. So then really the question is, and the feedback that we've gotten, and all of us agree, is, okay, great, we have a strategic plan, woo, we're done, see it. No, but how are we going to implement it? How are we going to hold ourselves accountable to make sure we have achieved these goals, we are meeting what we need to meet? So to talk about that, I'm going to turn it back to Ben so he can talk a little bit about what the TXCPA did to create a task force to help chapters implement. And then he's going to have Mark go through the actual operational plan that we're going to develop. So take it away, Ben.
Yeah, thanks, Kelly. So, you know, as Kelly said, and I see this in my professional life too, I do financial planning for clients. We can put together a phenomenal financial plan, but if it doesn't get implemented, it doesn't mean anything, right? And part of that implementation is on me as the advisor, and part of it is on the clients. And it's the same thing here. So the strategic plan, great, we're here now, but now going forward is going to be what's important. And part of that is going to be on us as the volunteer leadership in the chapter, and part of it will be on Mark and his team as the staff, and we're going to need to work together and coordinate and move forward. So on a state level, one of the things we were thinking about is, you know, some of the chapters have a strategic plan like we do here in Houston, and it's mostly a couple of the larger chapters, but not everybody does. But we thought it was important that we put together some tools for chapters to use so they didn't have to reinvent the wheel. So what we did is we pulled a couple of these chapters that already go through the process. So Houston and Fort Worth were at the forefront of that. And we had the executive directors from those 2 chapters, and then some volunteer leaders. So Mark was on that task force. Brad Elgin was on that task force. and then myself, Jody Ann, and some of the TXCPA staff. And what we did is we thought through the challenges that chapters are facing in implementing the strategic plan, putting together the strategic plan for themselves, their operational plan on the chapter level, and then implementing that. And so we put together some of those resources and distributed it out to the chapters. And we've been meeting with the chapters one by one to go through some of those resources and introduce them to it. Certainly not required that they use it. And then the chapters can adapt based on their individual circumstances. So what you're going to see here in just a moment, Mark's going to go through it and talk a little bit about how he and his team have already adapted some of those resources to our situation here in Houston and how we're going to be implementing the plan so we can be successful moving forward. So with that, Mark, you want to take it away?
Absolutely. Thank you, Ben. If you go to the next slide, please. All right, so this leads us into the operations plan. So the way I look at it is the strategic plan is where do we want to go? The operations plan is how are we going to get there? So that is involving basically a three-step process. First step is we're assessing our current activities, and this is where the staff started with. So we're taking a look at everything that we're doing right now and seeing how well it aligns into the new strategic plan. Now, if it doesn't align well, then we have to decide if we need to adjust it so that it will take us closer to those strategic objectives, or if we need to just discontinue it. If it's no longer relevant for the organization, if it's no longer taking us to those goals, then we just don't have the resources that we can expend if it is not moving us in that direction. So next slide will show you a template that we're using for that process. Very simple way to record what we're finding and what our assessment is. And we will, if we decide that we need to make any changes, we will take that to the appropriate committee and get their feedback in that. So next step two, setting goals. You heard everyone talk about alignment with TXCPA's strategic plan. And so Jerry in particular was talking about some of the, he called them, I think, side objectives or side goals that are built in really to every chapter. We know, for example, that if you go to the next slide, this will demonstrate, we know that we're going to have community and membership. That includes recruitment, retention, engagement. How can we create more value for our members? How can we get people involved in the organization? How can we make sure that we're communicating the value that is available to our members as well as potential members? Pipeline, very important for us to keep that stream of future CPAs coming into the profession and engaging with their colleagues. We've got outreach and awareness programs. Scholarships is a big one for that. We can reach and affect many future CPAs by the scholarship effort. Advocacy is another big area that we can never turn our back on. Our PAC program is very important in that, not only in terms of raising funds, but to keep members aware of different legislative issues that may affect the CPA community. We saw in 2020 how fast the world can change and how many things can be affected by that. It reminds us that we have got to continue to monitor what is going on, what kind of issues will affect the CPA community, and to maintain those relationships so that when something does happen that needs to be addressed, we don't have to build those relationships. We already have their ear. So that is a very important piece of this. And then finally, learning is something that the Houston chapter, I believe, excels at. Probably more than any other chapter. We really devote a lot of time and attention to developing all kinds of CPE events and learning opportunities. So all of that is built into this. It's all aligned with this TXCPA's strategic plan as well. And we want to move all of that forward in unison. So step three is we're putting this all together. We're getting feedback from committees, from the board, from task forces, and we're putting all of this into an actual plan. If you go to the next slide, here's what we'll do. We'll develop goals. We'll state what the goal is that will lead us to that strategic objective. And we'll also determine how are we going to measure the success of that. So we need that goal to be measurable, to tell us if we're in the right direction or not. And then for each goal, we may have one action item, we may have 20 action items. That's really what we'll have to decide, how many steps and what are the resources that will be needed for us to actually achieve that goal successfully. And then we'll keep repeating that. Goal number 2, goal number 3, who knows how many goals we'll end up with. We'll do as many as we need to achieve those strategic objectives. So that is in kind of a high level approach of the 3 steps that we're going to be going through to create this operations plan. Once we get it done, it'll be in this hopefully nice, concise document that will tell us exactly what our roadmap is for implementing that strategic plan.
And I just want to add one thing. So we also, I want to thank the committee. I mean, there was a lot of hard work put into this, and many times during the committee meetings, we were like, well, this isn't what I do, but I know that we're going to try and do it. So, I mean, it got us a little bit out of our comfort zone, but I think we came up with a pretty good plan. And I think that we're, with the knowledge that it's going to be, like I said, a living plan that's going to change and evolve. But I do want to mention that we have what we're currently doing in the board meetings is we have a strategic planning scorecard to look at our previous strategic plan, the goals and objectives, and how we're meeting all those. And so at every board meeting, we go over that to make sure. So that's another way to hold us accountable. So we're going to continue that with the operations plan and the strategic plan on board meetings going into the future. So it's not going to be a, here's our strategic plan, put that on the shelf and we'll see in 4 years. It's going to be, we're looking at it every single board meeting, and more often the staff's looking at it more often than that because they're, you know, analyzing the results. So we are going to continue monitoring it and pivoting as we need to, so that we can bring the best membership experience that we can and provide the most value to our members and the profession. So again, I want to thank the committee. I want to thank all of you for being here to listen. And like Ben said in the chat, don't be shy. Fire off questions, because we do want questions, comments, concerns, because that's the only way we're going to make this better.
Hey, Kelly, we have a question from Kathy. She's asking if we came up with anything new that we should be doing that we're not doing now. If you want to maybe think about that for just a second. And I'll say, Kathy, from my perspective, I don't know if this is specifically getting at your question, but we tried to do a lot of things new and different from a process standpoint this time. And I think that will be helpful. Even how we designed the committee, who was on it, how we had some of these conversations, the data we were pulling for that, and having Mark with a new set of eyes, I think was a huge benefit as well, coming in with a new perspective and bringing his new and unique background. I think that was beneficial. So we're also trying to be more accountable going forward as a group. Kelly just mentioned the dashboard and really having those conversations, having strategic conversations in board meetings, having all of the committee, all of the members of the executive committee on the strategic planning committee so that they were involved and had ownership in the plan. So for me, a lot of those things are contributing, I think, to a better plan. And then as Mark said, we also have the distinction between the strategic plan and the operations plan. And I think that will be important to keep us talking about the right things, both strategically and tactically. So for me, those were some of the kind of the new and improved things that came out of this. But Kelly, did you have any additional thoughts on things that maybe were new this time that?
No, I mean, I think you hit it. Like, I mean, the newest part is the operation plan, like you just mentioned, to make sure that we have that. Here's our high level strategic, and then here's our blocking and tackling, how we're going to get there. So, I mean, that was new this year. How we developed the committee, all those things were new this year. Obviously, a lot of stuff is the same because we are CPAs and we do a lot of things that are the same, you know, but we have tried to bake into this process new and innovative ways and seeking committee feedback, which is going to be the biggest part of the operations plan, is going to each of the committees and getting buy-in that way at an operational tactical level, rather than just saying, hey, how are you going to meet the strategic goal? And, oh, I don't know, you know, but this will actually be step A, step B, step C. So I think that's a big change this year. And then also being accountable and looking at the report card, the dashboard that we're going to look at every board meeting. So that way it keeps it on top of mind that, oh yeah, we need to deal with that each and every time. So I think that's different. And
Yeah,
I mean, we've made a commitment as the executive committee to do that, continue that. I'm making that commitment when I take over as president, and then I know Charlotte will do that when she takes over. So we're going to continue this process because, like I said, we want to make sure that we have the best chapter we can have.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of things too that the state's working on. You may have seen Jerry's presentation. I think some of that is going to filter down to the chapter level, and we'll need to adapt as we move forward. But some of the new things too, like what Kelly is doing with the member buddy program and whatnot, I think those are fantastic things, and I'm really looking forward to both participating in that program and seeing the fruits that come out of that. So lots of exciting things going on right now.
Yeah, and Ben, I'll just add to that real quickly. That's a good example. Is what I think where we'll really get into the innovation and the creativity is in that operations plan. Because if you look at the strategic plan, the objectives and the goals, they're probably not, way out there, right? We know that for a membership organization, there are certain milestones that we really want to aim for. And how we do that's where we can really get into that. Okay, let's think outside of the box here. For example, I think that one thing that we're going to be doing different is that we're going to do more data mining. And as Brad talked about earlier, where Rubik did some initial data mining, he got some really good information for us, and then we were able to act on that. We were able to act on that with confidence. And so that's one change that I see is I think we're going to be really emphasizing, let's get better data, let's know our members better than we do now so that we can anticipate what their needs and what their values are.
I like the question too. I think, when we were talking initially about bringing the strategic plan up to a higher level where, that was a challenge for me because, you like to have those specifics in there, but this is a perfect year of when you would have had some specifics in a plan that is hard to accomplish because things change from year to year and you don't anticipate. So I really do like the approach that we have now that we have a more higher level strategic plan that really captures what we've been doing and what we've been doing at a higher level, but that operations plan gets to the specifics. So Mark, can you tell us the timeline on the operations plan and when would that be done each year?
Yeah, the process, like I said, has already started with our assessment of our current activities. What our timeline is that we plan to have the final operations plan approved by the board at their May 26th board meeting. So we have a few months here where we're going to be collecting feedback from various entities, both internally and externally, so that we can hopefully get to those really creative solutions.